Clarke Brogger. Dude.
Yes.
Welcome.
So good to be here.
Dude, I'm so stoked you're here.
Thank you for having me.
No. This is awesome.
Really cool.
There's, like I always say, there's a list of people that I think of when I started this. I'm like, I only know part of his story. And so we're going to uncover it. But I'm stoked that you're here. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, we have overlap. We have a lot of overlapping friends, and our lives overlap a bit. You're married to a classmate of mine from high school.
Crazy.
So yeah. I've heard the Mark Schuline name for my whole life. Starting with my neighbor, Scott Littman.
Yeah.
He introduced me to you in like
long
77, something like that.
We love Lippy.
Yeah,
we love Lippy.
Good man.
Yeah. Well, so we're kind of giving away that we haven't gone very far. We're very blessed. We both live pretty close. And same high school. I've got a couple years on you. And there's a lot of hobbies that cross over. And there's some that don't. And that's what we're going to talk about. Because some of the stuff, what's interesting to me is where your life is today. And we're going to dig because it's really cool. But there's a bunch that I don't, like the in-between, like I know the high school stuff and I know the adulting stuff, but there's a big gap, and there's stuff that you were doing in there, mountaineering, you had some pretty serious situations, things that happen. Yeah. Your career has gone a direction that I don't know where it came from, but it's rad and really cool, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. So that's all we're doing here. We're connecting the dots.
Yeah. I mean, there is a big gap, and I will say that I like where I've ended up. I don't love where I started, but I do like where I'm ending up.
Rad. That's hallelujah. And again, from the outside, where you are today looks pretty awesome on both fronts. We'll talk about you being a pastor and a super passionate, always smiling, high energy guy, and your endurance stuff and your outdoorsy stuff. And when I think of it, I kind of think of like the indoor Clarke and the outdoor Clarke.
Oh, well said.
And so we'll talk about both of those. But what we're going to do is we're going to start at the beginning, if that's cool. We've already shared that we both kind of grew up around here. So let's talk about growing up here, talk about your family, and let's go.
Cool. Yeah, I'm total homegrown guy. We when I was born at Hogue here in Newport, few years ago, and then we lived on this side of the bay.
Oh, you did?
Until I got into 5th grade, and then we moved to the other side of the bay over in East Bluff.
So a distinction here, if you're not familiar with Newport Beach, there's a body of water called the Back Bay that separates both sides of the bay. We're on the west or north side, Costa Mesa, Newport border. That's what you see right out back. And the other side is the Corona del Mar, Fashion Island,
Newport
closer to Laguna side.
Yeah.
And there's good rivalry between the two. And we were just talking about schools. We both went to Corona del Mar High School. The rival is Newport Harbor High School, which is right back here. Yeah. And my kids went there. So we're like house divided.
Have your loyalties switched? Or you
Totally. I totally supported my kids, 100%. Have to do that, right?
Yeah,
got to do it. Got to be a sailor.
So it was a good move over to the other side because we're close to the church we were going to, close to my dad's work, and then we just lived right up the street from where I'd go to high school at CDM. So it worked.
Got it.
But I don't know, again, going back to what I was saying, I like where I ended up because we're not landlocked here, right? But we're waterlocked. Right? Our option is the ocean. That's our adventure option.
Hallelujah, right?
And it's a good thing. But we are waterlocked in that our sort of outdoor options are limited. We have the ocean here.
Do you look at it that way?
I did then. I mean, that's all I knew was the ocean.
But you've evolved, haven't you?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We'll get to that part, but it's like, as a kid, all I thought about was the ocean. That's because that's the option I had, And so I started surfing when I was in 5th grade. I had this my first surfboard was so epic. I got for my fifth grade birthday, whatever year that was.
Who got you into surfing?
My dad. So my dad was a big surfer when he was a kid. He surfed in Laguna. He surfed with the LVLZ, and he surfed with Hobie. He surfed with all those boys at Brook Street and stuff way back when. He surfed in the 64 Brook Street contest.
No way.
And got like 3rd place behind somebody famous. I can't remember if it was Hobie or who it was.
Did your dad grow up in Laguna?
No, he grew up in Pasadena.
In Pasadena. Was he one of those families that came down here, like Emerald Bay?
No, he's got a heavy story. Story. He actually ran away from home at 16 and never went back. Wow. He ended up down here. So he was living in a dumpster, like behind a supermarket in Newport. I don't remember which supermarket it was. Which one was it? But So at 16, he just bolts and he comes down here. 16, he bolts. And so I love my dad. My dad passed away 11 years ago.
What's the nickname you call him?
I called him Dad Dude.
Dad Dude, I saw that.
He called me Pachis. I don't know why. I think it's more of a sound than a name. He just called me Pachis. But what I love and miss most about my dad was his sense of adventure. He would tell me about these things that he would do. So he was a Marine, and then when he came back home, he would do all these sort of Marine-esque adventure things. He used to paddle his longboard around El Morro, and then over to Irvine Cove and just camp there. Wow. He'd catch abalone, he'd do that whole thing.
All before it was developed.
All before it was developed.
And today, El Morro, Irvine Cove, Emerald Bay are some of the most iconic private communities in the world. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous, beautiful, and it was, I'm sure, back in those days, unbelievable.
Unfettered, untouched back then.
You know what's interesting, and I had Craig Lockwood in the same chair that you're sitting in a few months ago, and Craig grew up with those guys too. He's 86. He was a 50-year lifeguard in Laguna, but he grew up down the street.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he grew up down the street from Hobie Alter and from Peanuts Larson, and he hung out in the garage with those guys when he was a little kid.
Yeah.
And he tells the story about the history of Laguna being just, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And how stunning the water was.
That's like, to my earlier point, those guys, they looked west, right? All they knew was the water. But behind them was all these epic hills that were untouched, uncharted, you know, back then. And so they looked this way. They didn't look that way. And so that's what I mean, like, I was, as a kid, I just looked that way.
I think what's interesting, though, Clarke, is that depending on who you talk to, if you mentioned a guy named Dale Velzy. Mm-hmm. Dale passed away a couple years ago, but icon in the surf and paddling world, going away. And he was a madman adventurer. He had a big mustache forever, but he was a big moto guy. Like, they would go out and behind probably Pendleton in that area on moto, and they own those hillsides. So I think it depends on who you spent time with.
Totally
right?
Stereotyping,
yeah,
for sure.
I was neither. My parents were from New York and Ohio. Like, the beach was a bit of it, but there wasn't a whole lot of that adventure because it just wasn't there in their wheelhouse.
Right. But you found it yourself.
Yeah.
And I had it. So I think I got the adventurous spirit from my dad, and I just channeled that into ocean stuff. But I remember, as a 4th or 5th grader, I remember we did some sort of history lesson in class, and they showed a picture of John Muir, just classic mountain man with a big beard and big stories of climbing mountains and getting lost in the Sierras and stuff. And I remember just being super drawn to that.
Wow.
But no consensual validation. Like, none of my friends cared about the mountains. My parents certainly did. My parents hated snow. And so it's just sort of this thing that I kept to myself, this like draw to the mountains and adventure in the mountains, you know. And I read stories and Muir books and all that stuff.
So you said you started surfing with your dad when you were 5.
Yeah.
When did this...
No, when I was 5th grade.
Oh, 5th grade. Yeah. When did this start? This allure, love, interest in John Muir and the mountains?
All that stuff. Yeah.
When was that? Same time?
Well,
later?
I guess it was around the same time that I was first exposed to John Muir, and then that led to this like exploration. You know, I'd go to the library and get mountain books and just look at.
So it just totally captivated you right out of the gate.
But again, it was somewhere inside because there was
nobody
else shared that. I shared that with nobody. So it was in there. But again, I think it was just part of that adventurous spirit that I inherited from my dad. And so even surfing, you know, I surfed the coves, you know, and Scotchman's, which is
between Newport and Laguna.
Yeah, just the rocky spots.
Yeah, not that great, but empty.
Terrible waves.
Yeah,
but empty. Like empty. No one's around, and cliffs.
Beautiful.
And seagrass and birds and all that stuff, and stable and horses back when they were
back in the
stables
day,
there.
sure.
Yeah, so it's like it felt super adventurous and cool. And I never surfed Newport. I probably surfed Newport 4 times as a kid. I just didn't like it.
So Newport is crowded. Straight beach with some jetties out there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting where we are, from the Wedge all the way up to almost towards Long Beach, it's just unbroken beach, other than piers and jetties, man-made stuff.
Yeah, a couple harbors.
But you go south from there, it's all rocky coastline all the way down.
Yeah.
And little pockets of gorgeous little reefs and areas you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting that we have both right here.
We do. And Newport was also a total super scene.
Yeah.
Like super sceney. And I wasn't good enough to be included in the scene. But 2, I was right with you. But 2, the waves were a little bit boring for me. And so I loved the reefs and rocks and coves and just adventure of the other spots. So it was in there. But then, you know, and so my life as a kid and in high school was volleyball, surfing, church, and then, this is embarrassing, but I played Legos till I was a junior in high school. It's like, My sister.
Is there something embarrassing about that? I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. It's just not that cool. I mean, my sister would bring her friends over, and I'd be in my room playing my Legos, like my Legos, and her friends would look in like, "Hey, Clarke, what up?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, just playing Legos here."
Not great for the dating scene.
No, it didn't hook me up that many times. But
but would be interesting, and we won't go into it, but like, I bet there's some superpower you possess based on your time creating things out of Lego. I don't know what they are.
Maybe so, yeah.
And don't feel bad. That's one of the biggest, most iconic toy brands in the world still today. So
that's true.
You had an affinity towards cool stuff.
Cool stuff.
Even if you're 18.
No one has said that to me ever, but I will take it.
I'm trying to make you feel better.
I appreciate it, bro. Thank you. So then I graduate college, or graduate high school. Yeah.
Graduate from Cromar High School.
Cromar High School.
And you played volleyball all the way through?
Yeah, I was a good volleyball player. I tried basketball through my junior year, then I quit. Just focus on volleyball, and we were good. We won CIF and stuff, and
awesome.
That was fun. So then I go to college. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I'll never forget. Back it was way before email and stuff. So we found out via snail mail.
Yep.
And so I got the letter that I was accepted. It was a Thursday afternoon that I got that letter. The next day, me and my friend drove up there to check, and this was the first time
You'd never been there, so you got accepted before even visiting.
I just had heard cool things. It sounded cool. We went up there, and I remember that drive up there. We're driving through Santa Barbara, we're driving through Los Olivos, and then on Highway 1 up to San Luis. It's just like, whoa, where am I? It's just so epic up there, and it still is. But it really kick-started this sort of trajectory of who I'd become today as far as adventurous guy, So
let's talk San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
Just an amazing campus for all the reasons you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What was your focus in school?
Psychology.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Is that what you finished with as well?
Yeah, I actually went in under agriculture just to get into the school. So I got in, then transferred to social psychology.
What was the draw of that?
Of psychology? Working with people.
Got it.
I knew that I knew that I loved people, and I had some experience with a therapist, and I liked my therapist, and thought, I could do that. So
it's really cool because you've just touched on two things that have kind of formed a big part of your life: outdoors and adventure, which we're going to get further into, and people and your degrees. I was totally opposite. I went to degrees that I really enjoyed what I was doing, having no idea what that would parlay into after college. I loved it, but I came out going, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do with it now, but it was good. I mean, I'm okay with it. It was fine.
Yeah.
But yours is different because yours is like, I want to be with people and I want to be in nature. Oh, you're there.
Yeah, and I'm not a psychologist, so I didn't totally use my degree, but it was a good time. But more than anything, college was a time for me to really find myself. It was super, super cool. Not only because I get there and there's all these. I'm talking about options earlier, right? I just had the ocean down here, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that's all I was aware. Up there, there's epic trails all over the place. There is really good surf up there and super adventurous surf up there. But epic trails, there's a lot of rocky, craggy mountains to climb. But more than that, there's a DNA, in the people, there's a DNA of wanting to get out there and get outside and do that stuff. So I wasn't just by myself anymore.
So you had this internal...
this crew of people.
Okay, so you had this internal goal or passion for it.
Yeah.
But it was unrealized until you got up there.
Yeah.
When you could actually go, oh, there's a lot of people that like to do it, and it's all right here, and I can go play outside. And these people probably have some experience, or whether it's clubs or people that have done it, and so you gravitate towards them. I'm totally making this up. I'm
you're
assuming.
right, though.
And
you're
you
right.
get in with a crew that can go allow you to go do what you've been dreaming about.
Yeah, it's like they put words to these things I'd been dreaming about. So I showed them surf. I taught them how to surf. They taught me how to camp and backpack and climb and run and trail run and trail ride and all that stuff, And so I just really fell in love with this crew that I met. And I got lucky to meet in the dorms, and then we're still really close friends. But I'm so thankful for, my friend Ben. He took me to Big Sur for the first time. Big Sur's incredible. I'm sure you've been out there. It's so incredible. My friend Jordan took me to the Lucas Valley up north of Marin, and that's an incredible place. So I'm seeing all these beautiful places that again gave me this release of this stuff that had been dormant. And so I'm like a kid, and I remember going to Lucas Valley, and it's just this huge green valley with great trails through, and I remember just like a kid just running around all over the place, just so stoked at this new world that I'm being exposed to.
That's super neat.
Yeah, and it's a gift. It was a total gift.
Well, and another thing, again, for anybody that's not familiar with California, like I always say that we have stores in multiple states, but it's like 4.5 states, and half is Northern California, or like they're kind of their own environment, because once you get to Central Coast, where San Luis Obispo is, just like we were talking about the coast here, it's completely different. Southern California is very different than Central, and Central is very, very different from NorCal.
Yes.
And NorCal is massive. Yeah. And you can get into nature very quickly there compared to getting into nature in the same kind of, to the same scope or scale. And then you're really close to Mammoth, and you're a lot closer to Yosemite. And I would imagine that's where, so let's talk about that. Like so you're going to school for psychology.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're living for the weekends.
Yeah, on the weekends we're going up to Big Sur. We're going on big surf adventures. We're going to Yosemite. We're going to Tahoe. We went to, there's a place called, what's that park? Pinnacles National Park. Did some rock climbing a lot. There's just a lot to do, and I was doing it, and because these guys were taking me, they were taking me out. So I had these bros that just, it wasn't even something that, I was super psyched, and they were like, what's the big deal? They had done these things a billion times.
It was like you surfing with your dad.
This was my first time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so super, super fun, and it really served to be this gift that started shaping me and helping me kind of find my way after I graduated.
Well, and I think that's also shines light. We were talking earlier about, you've got 2 daughters in high school. I've got 2 in college, and that's what college is supposed to do. I mean, you got to learn or pretend that you're learning, but you really, that's the time to like explore and find what you're really into and where you want to be and what you want to do and who you want to be with and those groups, right? Like I think we're blessed here to have, I'm still blessed to call some of my friends from grade school here in town, some of my best friends still today. But there's a whole other group from college that are still some of my best friends. In fact, they're all out in Palm Springs as we speak, and I'm going to try to go meet them on Sunday. But like, that's from 30 years ago, and my friends from here is from 40. And again, you find like-minded people that are really cool, doing really rad stuff, and it sticks, right?
Yeah, I'm super thankful for life here. So I hope I didn't convey otherwise earlier, but I'm thankful for my time here, incredibly thankful for my time there, and then. I spent some more years up there after school, and then eventually, I'm back here now. So I'm thankful for life now.
Rad. But, well, we're going to dig into that, but I want to know more about the sports. Yeah. So you had talked about a lot of the things that you picked up there: climbing, trail running, trail riding. You're surfing up there. Did any of those, excluding surf, did any of the things that you found up there become like a hyper focus? Like, more than others?
Okay, I'm going to say something I've never said, and I've never said it before because I don't want to get beat up by my bros, by my surf bros. But as passionate, you check surf and you see it going off and you get psyched, right? You feel that inside. You're just, oh my gosh, it's going off out there. I'm out there. I would say that when I'm looking at mountains or rocks that I'm going to climb or crags or boulders or trails, I think my level of psych is way bigger than it is when I'm checking surf. So sorry, brothers. Sorry, bros.
But let's talk about why. Why do you think that? What changed? Is there something that you love it more? Is there something about surf that you love less? Is it just you get a different stoke out of one over the other? What do you think it is?
I think surf, there's an association with the scene that tainted surfing for me a little bit. And so it became less pure. When I'm climbing or trail running, it's pure. Yeah. And I'm stoked, and it's just me and the trail or the rock or whatever it is, what I'm.
And no one's trying to take that rock or that trail from you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's for me,
compare their performance or their skill level to mine. You know, where surfing, you can't help it.
It's super duper competitive.
Yeah,
right.
It's super competitive, and everybody's always watching, and on sand, getting into the water, riding waves. Everybody's watching. Yeah, and that's for an extrovert, people pleaser like me. That's hard.
That's very funny.
It's hard to shed that.
Surf, I could have the same conversation because I've been a surf turkey my whole life. I still am absolutely focused and froth on it, but I don't surf as much as I used to because time constraints. And Jeff Netzer, who you might remember, Jeff and I, when we both had 3 young kids each, And I would text him or call him and go, hey, it was 6 foot and glassy, in the bay this morning when I paddled with my crew. And he goes, oh, it was 6 foot and glassy in the jiu-jitsu studio this morning. Because you have a timestamp. I can get in there at 5:30 and be out by 7 and get home to help or get to the office or whatever. Surfer, you're reliant on the weather, on the surf. You have to go hunt for it. You got to find parking.
Totally.
I sound like an old guy.
Yeah, no, you're old. Yeah, that's cool.
But there's a lot of other ways to get that stoke. And that's what it took me a long time to realize. Because if we had this conversation when I was 25, I would say that you're freaking crazy, that I'll surf my whole life every day and I'll never give it up and nothing's going to beat it. And then you go, life gets in the way. And you're like, oh, there are all these other things out there.
Yeah. And it's responsible to accept that. It's irresponsible not to, I think.
Well said.
Yeah.
But it's also good to spread your wings. If all you do is surf, you miss a whole lot of trails and rocks and accomplishments.
So the first time I climbed, I called my parents, I called my friend. I got back to my room and I called my parents and friends down here, and they were so unstoked. Like nobody was like, oh, you're crazy or you're weird. Why would you do? I was so bummed because I was so excited about this new thing I found. And
was it because they were worried? Because it seemed extreme?
Yeah, and they had no frame of reference back then. There was no social media stuff. There's nothing like to even compare. They couldn't even picture what I was saying, But man, I'll never forget the first day I climbed. It just opened up a big new thing. And I would say, again, I hate saying this in public, but I would say...
It's out there now, buddy.
It's out there, bro. I know. I would say rock climbing is number one.
Wow.
A very close second is trail running. I mean, I almost get teary thinking about it.
Dude, your friends are going to...
I'm done.
That's blasphemous, perhaps. Surfing's like a distant
I just lost like 12 friends right there. A very close second is trail running, and then a close third is surfing. But I don't know. Those top two they're way more efficacious on me than surfing is.
Well, let's talk about... if you don't mind, we're going to bounce back and forth because sport fits in with your whole life.
Yeah.
But when you finished San Luis Obispo and you finished with psychology degree, what did you do from there?
Yeah, I was working at a radio station.
Oh.
I had my own radio show. It was called The Clarke Side of the Moon. Shout out Clarke Side.
Modeled after the
Pink Floyd Dark Side. I thought that was really clever. So,
but how did radio? See, this is why we do this. Like, I never knew you had a radio show.
I was a musician, so I was in a band.
Oh.
Well, yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Okay.
In college, I did get into music. I was a drummer, and I became a conga player. So I studied the congas, learned how to play them, and became a conga player.
Does that mean that you were doing a lot of illicit drugs?
No. Never.
Sorry, kids.
Maybe. No.
Gotcha.
No. But I learned that, and so we were in a band. I was in a band called Itchy McGurk, and 1993, San Luis Obispo's best band. We won, so no big deal. But so I was in that. So I really got into music, and I'd been into music before in high school and stuff, but really got into it. And then our band performed at this radio station, and the radio station asked me if I'd be interested in coming on for an interview, and then I was like, oh, this could be fun. So they gave me my own show. It was Friday nights from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And it was super fun, Clarke Side of the Moon. And so I was doing that, and I thought, oh, I could do this. And so I graduated, considered that as a career. But
how long did you do that for?
Did I have my radio show?
Yeah.
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun.
Was that the only thing you were doing at the time, or was that during school?
It was during school.
That was, okay,
it was during school, so up until I graduated. And it was fun. It was my Friday night ritual. I'd get out of class Friday afternoons, drive up north to Cambria. I was in Cambria from San Luis Obispo. It was like a 30-minute drive along the coast, just an epic drive.
Yep.
Grab dinner, maybe grab a surf, and then get to my radio show. And then sometimes go home, sometimes go somewhere else after the show. But really good times. But again, another world opening up to me, like the music world opening up to me. And I thought I'd do that, like be a music company rep or a record company rep or something like that. But I came home and went to just check out my old church on a Sunday, graduated, and then came home. That first Sunday I was back, I went down to check out my old church, and a friend of mine who was working with the high school students asked me to come check that out. And I met some of the high school students, and a very similar draw, if not more powerful draw that I felt when I first saw mountains was that morning. Because I saw I saw a need in their eyes. I've been there. I know what you're going through. Again, brings tears to my eyes, but I remember this one kid, Bo. I sat in with this like small group of, so the pastor gave his message and then they broke them up into small groups, and so I sat in one of the small groups with my friend and was listening to the students talk and share about their week, and they're all sharing stuff that I struggled with when I was in high school at CDM. And I'm like, I can help you, and I want to help you. And so that kid, Bo, happened to be the son of the lead pastor of Mariners Church. That evening, I get a call from that lead pastor. He asked me to come on staff with the high school ministry, the high school department at that church. And again, I'd graduated. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had some interviews set up at these record companies, but I hung up that phone going, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And so that next Wednesday, I checked out the youth group, and I fell in love. And
Wow.
That's what started my career, is what I'm doing today. I'm pastoring.
And what year was that?
That was do I have to say what year?
No. Okay.
1995.
There was a
very long time
as
ago.
my youngest son would say, he was like, that was in the 90s. Like, you're old.
It's basically pre-internet, pre-everything.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize it'd been going on. Did you grow up in a real church-going family?
We went to Mariners Church, and that was a great time. At that time, Mariners was relatively smaller, and it was just felt like we were seeing family every Sunday, just gathering and seeing family. And that really was, like I said, I played volleyball, I surfed, and I was church. That was my life in high school. But it was a really great place back then. So
That's really cool. I mean, I'm
proud to be part of that.
I'm a little, I wouldn't say envious, but I've never been the person, like you've said, like I had a calling to the mountains. I had a calling towards my profession.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people probably have that, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people are like, well, where do I go from here?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I do think people just kind of fall into doing what everybody else is doing, or what everybody else grew up with. Like they come home and they get into real estate, or come home and do that, and that's all great. But maybe they do those things without feeling pulled to it. They just do it because they don't have another option or don't know what else to do. I was lucky to have that sense of calling.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I have to do.
No, it's amazing.
It's not even up to me. It's up to I believe, God telling me this is what you're doing. And I was stoked to have that feeling of
That's
of
so
calling.
cool. I had Jennifer Friend in here, Project Hope Alliance, and she had a calling, and she's running this incredible organization. She has for 10 years, but she had to make some gigantic life pivots. And her husband, she when she told him, she's like, I have a calling, I have to go do it. And he was like, hold on, what? What? And she tells the whole story of the why and how, and it's been incredible. And it's been an incredible thing for the community, what she's done. And just like you, I mean, you think about the number of people that you've influenced, it's incredible. And I give a lot of praise. And it's interesting. And so what I was thinking about, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is you've kind of gone a different path than most people around here. Like, I don't know anybody else that's gone into religion as their career. And I don't know a whole lot of people that we grew up with that are endurance athletes. And you've done both of those things, which is rad.
It's hard. They on one hand, there's a super integral relationship between the two. Like, I think my outdoor pursuits really do help fuel my career, my pastoring, and vice versa. Like, pastoring is so fulfilling and so rewarding, yet I need to be cared for and have my time, and so that my adventurous stuff gives me that time, and that fuels me to come back and pastor well, and vice versa.
So that's when I said we're going back and forth. So let's talk, if you don't mind, let's talk about the running aspect and the climbing. So there's been some really good documented stuff, whether it's you on your own social media channel of some of your running stuff, but prior to that, and this is what I wasn't as aware of, is you've done a lot of like legitimate mountaineering or rock climbing, whatever you want to call it. You want to talk about some of maybe the more incredible things you've done, or things that are the most inspiring to you, or you're most proud of, or the gnarliest or whatever from climbing perspective?
Climbing stuff, let me think what that
Because that's
would be.
so far outside of my world. But I mean, I saw pictures of you were you on Half Dome, or were you on
El Cap?
On El Cap.
El Capitan,
in Yosemite.
That was fun. I've climbed El Capitan, have climbed Half Dome, climbed Half Dome, climbed all in the Yosemite Valley in Colorado a little bit, up in Oregon. And I think that, the first time, I didn't have anybody telling me what to do or how to do it, and I just got into it. And I remember the first time I got to Yosemite, you drive through the Wawona Tunnel, which is at the east entrance, the fish gate entrance. You drive through the Wawona Tunnel, and you can't really see much of the valley before you get to the tunnel, and then you go through the tunnel, and then you can see the whole thing. And so the first day I was there, it was a cold, rainy, foggy day, just tons of fog. And I get so before getting to the tunnel, it was so foggy you couldn't see anything even on the sides of the road. But as I'm going through the tunnel, for some way you drop below the cloud cover and you can see everything. So I get through the tunnel, and for the very first time I see El Capitan and Bridal Veil Falls, and then Half Dome in the distance, and then all the other formations, Washington Column, all that stuff. It's all just right there, these huge formations. And it was like, I just pulled over, tears in my eyes, going, what? I mean, that is a picture of creation like I'd never seen before. Just these 3,000-foot walls. And I'll never forget it. So within a month, I climbed Half Dome. I found a partner at the climbing gym that I was going to. He invited me to go with him. I climbed Half Dome.
And that's early in your climbing career.
Yeah, I'd been climbing maybe 3 months, bro. I mean, it was like it's not smart. It's not even admirable.
But it's freaking awesome.
It was dumb.
Yeah.
But it was
you're still here.
So fun. I'm here still. Yeah.
What an incredible, where do you go from there?
So that was Half Dome, but and then I climbed El Capitan, the east face of El Capitan. That was really fun. I think the scariest thing was it got featured in the Adventure Journal a couple years ago. My friend Ted Reckes and Jeff Johnson, you guys probably know Jeff Johnson. Ted's a legend from Laguna too. The three of us were climbing, and Ted and I were actually on this trip. Just Ted and I were climbing, and it's a super bluebird day. We wake up before dawn, we get started, sun comes up, it's super bluebird, no clouds, nothing. And maybe halfway through or halfway up this face, it's called Temple. The mountain's called Temple Crag, and it's a I think a 2,000-foot climb. It's not straight up a rock wall, but it's a kind of a ridge climb, but pretty steep. Technical climbing. We're roped up and everything. About halfway through, we just kind of start noticing clouds coming in. And in the Sierras, clouds come in, storms can roll through, and you don't want to be on the rock when storms roll through because of lightning and all that stuff. So clouds start coming in, and I'm like, Ted, should we just keep going? What do we need to do? Let's just keep going, see what happens. We get to this one spot, and it just starts, it's just gray now. There's no more blue sky. It's like, okay, we got to get out of here before it starts raining. So there's this kind of gully. We're climbing up this ridge, but then there's this gully that looked like it had a little bit of a rappel route, like an escape route. So in a nutshell, we go down to that thing, and it starts hailing and snowing, and then just gushing raining. And we're on a freaking rock wall. And we're at a stance. We could stand. We had a good stance. And a tiny boulder pounds Ted in his back, and he almost falls off the thing. We're not roped in right now. A boulder came out of nowhere and pounds him in his back, and he just worked. And he didn't fall, praise God, but we're scared to death, and there's nothing we can do. We couldn't keep climbing. The rock was wet. So the only thing we could do was try and find that rappel route and rappel down. So we do that. We find the route. We're rappelling down, and the stupid rope gets stuck.
Come on.
So we're both at this lower stance, but the rope's stuck. So we either stay there and shiver to death because we're getting rained on and it's freezing and all these things are happening. We just stay there and hug each other and hope we don't shiver to death. Or somebody goes and undoes the rope, but does it without any rope. So if you fall, you're hosed. I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to get out of there. So I climbed, and I'm essentially climbing through this waterfall. I mean, it's total waterfall coming down this gully, this escape gully. I'm climbing through this waterfall. It's slippery. If I fall, I'm dead. But we were going to die if we didn't get the rope. So it was like, but the holes were good enough where I could do it. So I'm just pulling through, but I'm just getting showered, and I'm freaking freezing. I get up to the thing, and the rope had gotten caught in a little crack. I was able to get it out of there, and then kind of shimmer myself down or rappel myself down back to where Ted was, and we got out of there. But he said that he'd never been more scared. When he looked at me, he'd never been more scared. He thought sure I was done. Like I was shivering like crazy. I was talking like crazy.
When you would come back down?
When I'd come back down, yeah. And then he goes down, and so I'm threading the rope down so I can go down, so I can rappel down. And I dropped my rappel device. So I couldn't rappel. The only thing I could do was down climb. So my hands are numb. I mean, it was There's so much to say. But I ended up climbing down to where Ted was, and we got out of there. But that was a 4-hour thing that I don't think I've ever been more afraid than that. And we get down to the ground, we make it, we're safe. We're like, I'm never climbing again. Both of us basically looked at each other simultaneously, said, I'm never climbing again. But then 2 months later, we're back up there with Jeff, and we sent the climb. So
Dude,
it was like redemption.
Holy moly.
But it was so scary. And I'm so thankful that we made it through. If I one slip, I'm done. Ted slips, he's done. I mean,
I talk about Alex Honnold. Dude, first and foremost, what a great story, an incredible story. Like, holy schmoly.
Yeah.
I always, two things. One, I talk about Alex Honnold, and when he did free solo, you know, what do they say? Like, you win the gold medal or you die. There's nothing in between. Right? Like, no ropes to climb that. So, to do what you do. The other thing that I always say is, like, I love a good adventure, and I like to push it. But I don't want to die. And I want to sleep in my bed that night.
Right.
I don't want to be free. Like, I am a fair weather adventurer, fair weather endurance guy.
Yeah, that's responsible adventuring. What I did was irresponsible adventuring. Yeah. We got stuck.
But you got a great story.
It was super fun, but I mean, it wasn't fun.
But
it was type 2 fun afterwards. Yes. It was like, I was sick.
Define type 1, 2, and 3
Type 1 fun is like while you're doing, like surfing is a perfect example of type 1 fun. While you're riding a wave, it's super fun in the moment. Type 2...
and it's fun when you reflect on it.
And it's fun so it's everything, yeah. But then type 2, it's like it's more suffering in the moment. But then when you're done, you look back and like that was so awesome. Sick, yeah.
And type 3?
Type 3 fun is, I think it's
not
never fun ever.
It's not fun when you're doing it. It's not fun when you reflect on it.
It's just pure stupidity.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah.
But, and we talk about in here, a number of people we've talked about, and Danny Nichols, and I think was the first one, talked about the misogi, like an animal misogi, which is the Japanese. It's a purification ritual, but it's also the 2 rules of a misogi, which is a good adventure. It's basically, you have 2 rules. It has to be hard enough that there's a 50% chance of you not completing it. And rule number 2 is you can't die.
Okay, it's a good rule.
That one sounds
decent rule.
Closer to it might not be misogi. Dude, but listen, and go back to your relationship with God and everything. Like, you must have had some moments in that waterfall, free climbing up and down, freezing cold.
Yeah.
Petrified, going, God, if I get out of here, or I mean, I don't know.
No, but I neglected to say that, but that's all I was saying while I was freezing, climbing, getting up to that rope was God help me. Every move was God help me. Oh, God help, show me the next handhold. God put my foot on the rock. I mean, every breath was God help me, and He did. Garance, He did help me through that. We could get into my broken neck. It was the same thing. Like, God help me.
Well, you brought it up.
I know.
We got to talk about it.
Mean to,
no. It was coming up at some point, but you walked right into it. So tell us about your surfing accident.
I just spoke about this.
How old were you? And then tell the story.
I just told this story to the church. I don't talk about this story that much because it's really special between me and God. It's like another gift that He's given me, my broken neck. But yeah, I was surfing in a place called Thalia Reef. You know Thalia Street in
Laguna Beach, yeah.
Thalia Reef, this little reef, like it's totally localized reef. It's a super fun wave. Not a great wave, but it's super fun. And like when it's on, there's nowhere I want to be. I want to be at Thalia Street when it's on. And the boys are out. And so this day was like, it was late May Day. And the whole week had been really good. And it was Friday at the end of the week. And I wasn't planning on surfing, but I was getting texts from some friends like, you're out there, it's good, let's go. And so I met them out there. And I surfed with my buddy Austin and my buddy Sean. And another guy named Josh was out there who was friends with Austin, and he never had surfed before, didn't really want to surf, but he was out there with his friend Austin trying to learn to surf. Josh happened to be an EMT, so a trained EMT. And Thalia Reef, it's ideally, you surf there when it's like mid-tide, and so it was actually on the higher side.
You're giving away a lot of secrets that we may have to beep out.
Yeah, bro, sorry. Not Thalia Street, this is up in Northern Cal. But when it gets higher tide, there's all these rocks that are hidden under the tide. So it was getting to be pretty high tide at this point, and I caught a wave going down the line, and I remember thinking, oh, there's people checking surf up top of the stairs, guys out the back watching. So I remember thinking, I got to do.
This goes back to the surfing ego thing we were talking about, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So I had to do some move, and so I remember racing down the line, trying to get some speed so I could finish off the wave and do a move. And by the time I got up I did a bottom turn, came up to the top, and it was about to hit the lip, and the wave just died out, and I ended up it's almost like I kicked a rock when I was running and skipped forward. So I went up to do my move, no energy in the wave. The energy I was putting into it was too much, so I just kind of flew forward and basically torpedoed through the water.
No hands in front of you.
No hands, just like, burp, and my forehead just smacked a rock that was underneath. And I remember it so just succinctly. It was this ting, like this high piercing ting that like rolled through my body like a shock wave. And as it did, my body went numb, and I was paralyzed. And so that happened. And then I'm underwater. I'm floating underwater. I remember it being super dark and hearing all the sounds like, you're underwater, just the weird sounds. And I remember,
you were fully aware. You were fully conscious.
For a second, and then I passed out.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I don't know how long I was out for. It couldn't have been that long, but I was out. And then I came to, kind of like, what's happening? Whoa, I'm underwater. I can't breathe. I can't move. I'm gonna die. I mean, I'm in, effectively I was in like 3 feet of water, but I couldn't move.
Yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't really know where I was, what was happening, except that I couldn't breathe or move. And so I yelled out underwater, just this gutter, like, I was just terrified. I was dying. I mean, guys, it's sketch to think about. It was like literally dying. Yelled out, and I don't know what happened, but somehow it must have been a wave or some sort of pulse, but somehow I was rolled over and brought to the surface, and I could breathe, and I could yell. And so I yelled, help me, help me. And then no response, and I started to sink again. And I took a gulp and just sunk under the water again. And I'm like, oh, this is it. No one heard me, no one's around.
Nothing from your
no
arms, legs, nothing.
Nothing could move. I'm just
your mouth.
literally floating, sinking, drowning, dying. It was a heavy moment. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know how long it was, but I felt these hands lifting me up. It gets me above water. I breathe, and he looks down at me, and it's Josh,
the
who was
EMT.
the EMT, who knew how to cradle my head and drag me to shore. Had he not been out there, who knows? Austin, my friends would have come on, just like, I don't know what to do, and could have hurt me worse on accident.
So he was able to. Not only did he come to your rescue, because he's probably attuned to things like that.
Yeah.
But he was able to stabilize you.
Yep. Cradle me perfectly. I mean, it was just again a gift, and took me to shore. And from there, I'm still paralyzed. It's a couple cool things too. My friend Jonathan, who had been checking the surf, saw it happen. He ran down. I told him to call my wife. My wife was at work, and when my wife's at work, she can't answer the phone.
How old were you when this happened?
I was.
Or how many years ago?
It was 15 years ago. May 15th would be 15 years
it's
ago.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my wife happened to have a cancellation, so she was able to answer the call. So she raced to the hospital. Cool thing, I'll just say this that I remember. So they pull me out of the ambulance, and there's all this chaos around. People are grabbing me and pulling me and yelling at me and all this stuff. And I feel this soft hand grab my ankle. And I yelled out, Annie. It's my wife, Annie. Annie. She hadn't said anything. I didn't know she was there, but I felt her hand. It was really a sweet moment.
So, but you were able, not only did you know that it was her, but you could feel her
I just,
on your ankle while you're paralyzed.
Yeah. I yell, Annie. Yeah. That's actually, I never thought of it that way. How somehow I could tell it was her. I could sense it. I could feel that touch. I could tell it was her. Yell her. She comes over to me. Honey, you're going to be okay. Oh, such a powerful moment. But long story short, the doctor pulled me out of the MRI, said, yes, you've broken your neck. You're going to be paralyzed.
Oh,
and then,
really?
Yeah. This is 15 years ago. So I'm thinking, what? What about my family? What about my wife? What about my job? What? I mean, I wish that was on record, like what my response was. But I remember just being stunned. Like I knew I was paralyzed, but I thought I didn't.
Yeah, it was temporary.
Yeah, I thought it was temporary, and he said, no, you're paralyzed. And praise God, 3 weeks later, I was moving, walking, and a month later, I was home just in time to see my second daughter get born. Wow. So there's this great picture of me holding my daughter with this huge brace on my neck, and just still scarred up and stuff. But so yeah.
How long did it take you to get back to full
recovery? I was back in the water in September. It happened in May. I surfed again in September.
And the doctors, were they surprised by this, or
he told me I was paralyzed.
Yeah.
Doctor told me I was paralyzed, and 3 weeks later, same doctor said, "You're good." I mean, yeah.
What did that experience do for you? Or
what it did, Mark?
For you?
Yeah, that's a good question. What it did was, that was a time when I was really caught up in myself, in my surfing, in my climbing, in running, in all my adventure stuff. And it had really, if I'm being honest, it had taken precedence over the stuff that were important, that were more important than that selfish stuff, like my kids, like my wife, even my job. I mean, when there was surf, when we lived this was when we were living in Laguna, I was pastoring a church in Laguna. When there was surf, I was worthless at the office, just worthless. My friends were texting me, so I was worthless. So my priorities were just out of whack. When there was surf, I forgot about my family, I forgot about work, I forgot about wife. I just focused on surf and being part of the scene and being part of the bros and just all that junk. And I was so stubborn that it took a broken neck to shake me out of that. And that's really what it did. I came home, committed to reprioritizing things. And I still surfed and did all the stuff I do, but those things came second and third and fourth to
a little bit more harmony in your life.
More harmony for sure. And that's what my family deserved. They didn't deserve to have my second hands or my, what's the word? They didn't deserve a second-handed dad or husband. They deserved me to be there to be my first priority.
Well, it's really powerful and I mean, what an incredible story. Like I only heard bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I love the way you can tell these stories with such kind of clarity and passion. And clearly between the radio job and being in front of people for the last 30 years, like you're very well spoken and it comes across really well in storytelling. But
I told that story twice in public.
Is that right?
Twice. Really? One, I usually cry all the time when I tell it, but two, it's just so special between me and God and my family. It really was a big turning point in my life.
I can imagine. Well, anybody that surfs a lot, like there's a draw, right? And maybe we'll even talk right now about the draw of nature and the ocean. Like there's power there and spirituality and a lot of stuff, a lot of recovery, a lot of good comes from it. But there's also that side of it, right? And I can name people, I can think of people here and in Hawaii that they never, maybe fortunately, don't have an experience like breaking their neck to help them recalibrate, but they put it before. If there's waves, everything's out the window.
Totally.
I mean, there's a lot of places the restaurants won't open when the waves are really good because all their staff's gone, right? But I've seen marriages dissolve because of that too. And I learned early on, like, you got to prioritize, right? Or harmonize so it all works well together.
That's well said, harmonize. I like that. Yeah, whether it's a leisurely pursuit or an adventure thing or our friends or whatever, we have to be on guard to not let those things become first and sort of blind us from what's really important.
Yeah.
And that was happening to me. So I just needed the scales to be removed from my eyes, and it took a broken neck to do that,
Yeah, but you're back to full force.
I'm back to full force. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about we talked a fair bit about the climbing. I'm sure you're still doing that a lot.
Yeah. So climbing's less now. I can't do everything, and so my girls are old enough where they just
they don't care what you're doing anyway half the time.
That's probably
Chopped
true.
liver.
They pretend to care, but no, I want to be with them. I have a couple years left with them, so I want to be with them a ton. So something had to give
before they graduate and go off to college.
Yeah. So something had to give. So climbing has taken a back seat. So I mostly am running.
Let's talk about the running.
Yeah.
So you've done. There was a time, I think that's when we kind of reconnected a bit, was when I was doing a lot of distance running. You were doing a lot. My body has not allowed me to continue that, but I did about 5 years of full out, and you've been going. I mean, every time I see a post, you're doing some cool stuff. But what I appreciate about those is not just the distance, but it's the appreciation for it and the love for it and where you are and what you get to see, because that's the nature part, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, we do have stuff we can do close by here. It's not just we can look east and go run.
Right.
So talk about your running, and you also have had some big. Let's talk about your accomplishments too. Talk about running and what you get from nature and that whole bit, and then talk about some of the cool stuff you've done.
Well, it's a gift. There's trails right there, and I just never really saw them, but there's trails right there, and there's we moved to this place called Turtle Rock, which is a little cool community.
Irvine, not far from UCI.
Yeah, right on the border of Newport, Irvine, and it's up on above Irvine proper, so it's this cool little spot, and it's at the base of all these trailheads. And so we moved there, and I'm like, I was climbing a lot at the time, so I thought a great way to stay in shape would be to run trails and just do that stuff. And so got into it and just found myself moving over these trails, not hiking, but running over them, and it was so fun. And I just felt like this boy again, running through the hills. And so I just really got hooked to it. And really it's super accessible, right? So I don't have to go to the climbing gym. I gotta get time, and it takes 3 hours. It takes 30 minutes to drive there, and then work out for 2 hours and come home. It's like, but I can be out the door on trail in 3 minutes. So it's just way more accessible. So I love that it's right out my door. I love moving swiftly over things and climbing up big hills and dropping down into valleys and just all that stuff. And the trails out here at El Morro Wilderness and Shady Canyon Wilderness and Bomber Canyon Wilderness, and then this special place called Butterfly Valley, there's very few people there early morning, so I'm always by myself out there. So when you think about sort of pure-hearted pursuit, that's what that is, and that's why I love it so much.
And you're getting the
nobody's
sunrise.
Watching me, nobody's judging me, nobody's telling me you're too slow, which I am very slow, but nobody's telling me that. So I'm just out there. I see coyotes, I call them bro-yotes. I see deer. There's birds. There's just wildlife, and so I'm out there, and it feels like I'm in the middle of Boulder, Colorado, or somewhere. It's like it's just a really cool escape. So yeah, the Butterfly Valley is in the middle of Bomber Canyon, I guess. It's backside Bomber Canyon. And have you ever heard of that word?
No.
Yeah, see, it's
I mean, I've ridden and run Bomber plenty, but I don't know exactly where that is.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really amazing area, but no one's ever back there. So I just feel like it's just a sweet gift. So I just got into it, and then it just coincided with the time that trail running was kind of taking off. So I love gear. So there's all this cool trail running gear, and I got into that, and then just a friend of mine suggested a race, and so I did a race, and it's actually the El Morro. My first race was a 10K, and I won it.
Really?
So I'm like, yeah.
Was that Grit Series?
I won
it
was a Grit Series.
So that's the John Wayne Cancer Foundation Grit Series.
It was the year before that started. So it was actually the Who's El Morro race by Molly. She puts them on.
Yeah, who's that
gal
girl?
named Molly. Yeah, who's that girl?
Molly.
Molly.
Kassouf.
Okay, yeah.
Who's that girl?
Yeah.
Prolific on Strava,
super
and
prolific.
Instagram, and just rad.
Total legend. It made things happen.
Local legend.
So I won my age bracket. Let me clarify.
wow.
I won my age bracket, not the race. So I won my age bracket, and it was super fun. So I was hooked. I was hooked on races. And so races are cool because they give you something to train for and give you something to aim for, So then I did done 5 50Ks.
What's that in miles?
50Ks is 31 miles. So it's
You're an ultra runner.
Ultra
I love
runner.
that.
Anything above a normal marathon is an ultra runner.
I love that.
So it really is fun. It gives you something to train for and aim for. And
Now, do you like to run solo or with a group?
I always run by myself.
Do you?
And again, back to that scene thing. If I'm running with other people, then I got to keep up with them and make sure I'm fast enough and all that stuff. I don't want to worry about that.
Yeah, I get it.
So like
For sure.
our buddy Chad, he's way faster
Chad
than I am.
Carter.
So he's way faster than I am. So I don't want to run with him because I have to keep up with him.
Well, don't feel bad. When I paddle with him and when I ride with him, he's faster than me and he smashes me every time.
Yeah, right. And
But he's young.
He's
We'll
young,
give it to him.
as he should. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't want to deal with that stuff. So I oftentimes run with myself. But I do have a couple of buddies that I run with, and we're on pace with each other, so that's super fun. But
Did you do something on a birthday? Did you do a...
yeah, so my 50th birthday, I ran a 50K, and it was really special. That was my first 50K, and it was a backyard. It was during COVID, so the race I had planned to run got canceled. So I just did a backyard 50K, planned my own course, and it was all on trail, one huge loop throughout Laguna Coast and Shady Canyon, Bomber Canyon. And a couple friends joined me. And so it started at my house and then looped back to my house.
So fun.
And so little did I know, I'm doing the race this whole time, and little did I know, waiting for me back at the finish line at our house was about 40 people,
No
40
way.
of my friends that
How fun was that?
My wife
That's
coordinated
so
this whole thing. So I come around the corner. I really wish it was on video because I come around the corner on our street
After running 50 Ks.
50K, so 30 miles. Yeah. So I come around the corner, and I'm just trashed. And I come around the corner, and there's 40 people, and my wife had that song from Chariots of Fire playing.
No way.
And I see everybody, and I just lose it. And I mean, your body's broken down after a race like that anyway. So you're like
Emotionally raw.
You're raw. Yeah, the perfect word, emotionally raw. And so I was. So I see everybody, I fall to the ground because I'm just so overwhelmed with, what are you guys doing? It was so
great.
fun. So I get there, and here's the best part. I crossed, she had made this finish line. I get through the finish line, and I circle back, start walking back, and I totally just barf.
You're kidding.
Yeah,
in front of everybody?
In front of everybody. These kids are there. They're like, sweet, bud. Dad, can we go? Yeah.
Yeah. Not only are our bodies raw, oftentimes our stomachs are raw after all that stuff too.
Yeah. It's basically our stomachs are angry at us.
But I love that. I mean, I'm a big accomplishment guy. I love doing stuff like that on birthdays and New Year's. And I mean, Chad and I have run the New Year's marathon. We go from our house around and we just keep going. And my 50th. I love it's. What better way to kick off the second half of your life than I just ran a 50K.
Super fun.
I love that.
Yeah, but then so you do 50K and you're like, oh, what's next?
What's next?
Let's do a 50 miler and then 100K and then 100 miler. So I'm working towards those distances.
Good for you.
We'll see what happens.
I wish I could. I was never a runner growing up.
Neither was I.
I love running, and my knee doesn't let me do it anymore. But man, I love long distance, and so I can still paddle.
Yeah,
I
can still ride 1 billion miles. Yeah,
it keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah,
right. But it's also, let's talk about nature. I mean, this is where I think there's a convergence, right? Yeah. You've got nature and you've got religion and spirituality, and for you, I'm guessing they're similar.
Yes, but
or they cross.
Yeah, you asked a question earlier. I was going to say that it's all about relationship. We were created for relationship. God created us for relationship. I believe that we were created by God, and He created us for relationship. So I'm meant to have relationship with people, and I'm meant to have relationship with creation. And so when you're running through it, or when you're surfing, like when you're getting barreled, is there a better picture of you interacting with nature than that? No. Or when you're running on a trail, or when you're grabbing a rock and you're climbing it, or when you're doing something outside like that, that's you in relationship with creation. Yeah. And it's inspired. There's a sort of inherent inspiration that you feel. There's a joy that you feel, a gratitude that you feel, and you're just a better person as a result. So I feel addicted to it, because I know that when I get out there and I have an hour by myself out there, I come back a better person. Yeah. Or after a good surf session, you feel like a better person.
I say it all the time, and if Randy was sitting here, she would say it. I love her a little bit more after a big workout.
Amen.
Right? Like every time,
Amen.
right? Like I come home, I'm super, like you're full.
Yeah,
like my heart is full. I feel so good. Yeah. And I love everything.
And it's not just because it's not coincidence. That's by design. Yeah. We're created for those things. We're created to enjoy the created world. We're created to enjoy God. We're created to enjoy each other.
Well, and what's really interesting, Clarke, is that if you think of, again, a lot of time the same themes come up in here, but you think of what everybody's prophesizing in health and nutrition and wellness and headspace, and it's all these things. It's camaraderie, it's community, it's exercise, and like everybody's looking for the silver bullet. Just get out, go, just go do stuff. Do it. Yeah. Just go. Yeah, you're right. Pick a mountain, pick a hillside, pick a beach, go sit in the sand. Just get out of your box and turn off your phone. Yeah. So I had an opportunity. I was in Moab on a mountain biking trip just last week, and no cell reception for 3 days. That's probably the first time in 10 plus years I had no reception. It was glorious. It was the best thing. And I'm not strong enough to turn off my phone to do what I should do and just turn it off for half the day or every day. It was magical. I stopped. I didn't look in the mirror, and I didn't look at the phone for 3 days. And I was way better for both. Yeah. You came back, I'm good looking, huh? It didn't even matter because nobody cared. And that's another one of my mantras. Nobody cares at this point. I always say, I would come back from a marathon, the kids are still asleep, or hey, I just ran a 50K. Hey, go take out the trash, honey. Right?
Exactly. Can you help with dinner?
When you do the same stuff all the time, totally. It's big deal to some people, and to our families are like, it's just dad doing his thing.
Right. Yeah.
Hallelujah. I'm glad we could do that.
Yeah.
We'll get back into that, but let's get into career where you are today.
Okay. Cool.
I know you were having a bit of a pivot of some sort. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago?
No, a year ago, almost a year ago.
Almost exactly. A year ago. Yeah. Let me read a couple quotes. So there's a couple quotes that I found. One was, I think, around that time, and one was previous. But these are just ones I think tell a bit of a story about you, and I found them really, really cool. So the first one, and I'm truncating, but I'm taking the second half. I am ready. I am unshackled, free, and fired up to hit the next trail with gusto, gratitude, and humility. Was that related to the new career? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And I just love the way you look at it. And
not new career, but new job.
New job.
New place. No. Well, specifically new church. Yeah.
And then there's this one, a little bit longer, super neat. Whoops. It is, I think this is when you were entering 2022, so 2 years ago, a little over 2.5 years ago. I want to be straining. Does this one sound familiar?
Yeah.
I want to be straining. Straining involves humility, drive, focus, dependence, resiliency, and resolve. It cannot be done alone. I want to strain towards what's ahead. A man of God, a husband, a father, a pastor, a caretaker of others. That one gives me chicken skin. A side hustling businessman. We actually had talked about that. A guy who runs trails, a guy who surfs, a guy who climbs, and whatever else comes my way. Dude, that was so good.
Oh,
I really, really like that one. That stuck with me, and I really think that thinking back what you've done, how you've done it, where you've been going, I think it's a really good representation of you. It's really, really neat.
Well, I would say to be careful what you ask for, because that was January 22. 22 into 23 was the hardest year of my life.
You got the strain.
And that's aside from my broken neck, aside from the other things I'd gone through. It was the hardest year of my life. Yeah. So I was...
What you put out in the universe, you got to be careful what you put out there.
When I thought of straining, God heard me. And
He wanted to
the
test you a little
opportunity
bit?
to strain
Wow.
was definitely there. So it was a very difficult year. Yeah. I dealt
What
with...
did you learn? What did that time provide you
Well,
or do for you?
As hard as it was, I'm very thankful for it, because it even at my age, at our age, we're still being shaped, right? And it was a very shaping year. It showed me who I am, it showed me who I want to be, and it showed me who I don't want to be, especially the latter. It really showed me who I don't want to be. And so it kind of set me up for this amazing chapter that I'm in right now. And
Let's talk.
So straining, I mean, crazy. Now, I'm so glad you brought this up, Mark, because straining, ideally, if you strain for something and you get it, you're better for it. And so, 22 and into 23 was a year of straining, and it prepared me for where I'm at today, and I couldn't be more happy for where I'm at. But that year, 22, I dealt with some serious betrayal from people that I was working with. Gossip was rampant in my life. I was the object of gossip, and it's just like, wow, the people that I really trusted and looked up to are really not what I thought they were. And so thankfully I got delivered out of there. And in that being delivered out and being forced to leave and all these things, it just built some character and prepared me for where I'm at today. And it's just the polar opposite. I'm with people that I totally trust, totally love working with, am challenged by, am pushed by, and inspired by, and stoked to be working with. And I'm at the church. It's called The Crossing. It's right here in Costa Mesa. It's just a really special, special place. And we've got a huge recovery ministry. We've got a huge homeless outreach. We've got huge ministries for men and women and couples. And so it really is, after all this time, I've been a pastor for 30 years, and I'm really at a church that I've always wanted, the kind of church I've always wanted to be at, working with the kind of pastors I've always wanted to work with. And I've worked with some great pastors in the past. I was at a church in Laguna Beach, and that's led by a guy named Jeff Tacklin. He's an incredible guy, one of my best friends, and so I got to work with a guy like that, and working at Mariners was great too. And so I've had some great experiences, but really where I'm at now, I couldn't be happier.
Would you have ended up there had that straining not happened and the challenges you navigated? If those had not happened, would you still be where you were?
Exactly. I'd still be stuck at a church that was not a good fit for me. Yeah. And so I'm totally thankful for this time of straining.
So you've kind of operated a life of challenge. You think about all the good stuff that's happened to you and for you and you've done, but you also look at the things, you had to have a near-death experience on a rock to give you some perspective on rock climbing and safety and what do we not do next time. You had to break your neck surfing to realize I need to spend more time with the family. And you had to deal with, betrayal and gossip to find the job that you really, it's pushed. You've been strained.
Yeah, I've had to be pushed a lot. I don't find my own way. I'm having to be pushed into it.
Really, yeah. But it looks like it's been working out.
It's
pretty
totally
well.
working. It's because I'm stubborn. I don't know what it is, but I'm thankful that there's a great verse in the Bible that says God pushes those that He loves, and so I'm feeling very pushed. And so that if that verse is true, then it means that He really loves me.
I think it's working.
And I think he loves everybody. So, yeah. So
let me ask you this. As a pastor, 30 years now, you had a
Mm-hmm.
calling, you're still doing it, you're where you want to be now. What is it about you that makes you a good pastor?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think a good pastor, another word for pastor is shepherd, and a good shepherd cares for his sheep really well, right? He makes sure that they have enough food, water, shelter, they're walking in the right direction. And so I like that idea of pastoring because I just want to care for the people that are in my sheepfold, if you will. I'm not calling them sheep, but that's the metaphor, obviously. But the people that I'm called to care for, I love them, and I really want to care for them. And caring for them means to push them and give them some truth in a loving way. It means to feed them and give them, feeding in this sense, giving them sort of spiritual guidance and using scripture and prayer and all these things to help them find the path that they need to be on. So I think being a good pastor starts with really caring. And I hate to say it, but I think that's a little bit of a lost art in the pastoring world today. I think that a lot of pastors get caught up in making sure we're attractive and getting numbers and all these things, which those things are really important. You want to be attractive so as to get people to the church so that you can care for more people. And if that's your motivation, great, you're on point. But if it's just to get more people for whatever reason to build up your own ego, then it's a huge mistake.
It's back to the surfing example. That does not sound like that fits you.
Yeah, well, right? I'm not saying I'm not tooting my own horn, but I do know that I really do love people, and I think the best pastors, it starts with the love of people. It starts with the love of God, of course, but then a love of people versus wanting a platform and wanting to be in front of people and wanting to do all these things. I hate to say it, there's just some pastors out there that are really not representing Jesus very well.
It's more business or ego.
Sure. About anything other than Jesus. And that's a mistake. Because
I think there's that in everything. In every religion and every bit, right?
If the world has a bad association with Jesus, then we're blowing it. Because Jesus is so beautiful. He's a beautiful human being. The kindest, most sacrificial, loving human being that ever walked the earth. And if we're not representing him well, we're really blowing it. And I don't know if we are.
Well, I'm guessing that you're representing him pretty well. I mean, just your demeanor
I don't know. I really want to. I'll say that.
Well, you think about the things that inspire people, and it's how you communicate, how you hold yourself. Are you authentic? Are you dour? Are you positive? You're on the positive side of that all the time. I can't imagine, just from the storytelling and the way you communicate here, I think it's very clear how you most likely lead people. So
yeah,
kudos.
That might be true, but I obviously have so much to learn, as we all do. But I'm still being pushed. So
yeah, God's going to teach you what you we've got those examples that you've gone through.
I wouldn't have to be pushed anymore, but I'm still being pushed.
Do you start going, what's next? I've already broken my neck.
I know, come on.
I've been stuck on a crag.
I'm going to lose my toes or something.
No, we don't want any of that to happen. Listen, we talked a bit about your family, but tell us about being a dad, because I know you're a super engaged family man. You've talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
Tell us about what it's been meant to you.
And
a husband.
Yeah, I have a junior in high school and a freshman in high school. They're both girls, and oh boy, I love my girls so much. You have a son and two. No, I have two sons.
Two boys and one girl.
Yeah. Man, it's an honor to be a dad to daughters. It's an honor. And these girls, speaking of pushing, they push me big time. I mean, I want to, in my home, I want to serve. I want to be the best server in the home. I want to serve the most. So I want to serve my girls more than anyone. I want to serve my wife more than anyone. I want to outserve my wife when it comes to the family. And I think that's the best way to lead. I want to be a leader in our home, and I want to do that by serving. I don't need to be the loudest or be the most authoritative. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think the way to do it is to serve. So I want my daughters to grow up seeing me serving them, so that when they choose a husband, they choose someone that can love them according to what they need and can serve them, put them ahead of them.
Hallelujah.
You know what I'm saying? So make themselves second or third. I want to be fourth at this point. We have 2 dogs, so I'm basically sixth in the house. So
I recognize that myself.
But I love that challenge, bro. You know what? It's a great challenge, and it's a great challenge to really take seriously. So I think it was easy for me. At least it was easier being a dad, like until they were about 7 or 8. You know, and then it became, okay, I need some help here. You know, I need some coaching. I need some advice. I need all that stuff. And so I've had some good mentors, and the work's never done, but I really love it.
Rad.
I mean, I'll say this. There was a time when we were in Laguna, and we were having a beach day, and my wife, it was just the 4 of us. My babes were infants at the time, and we were just sitting there, and I was looking out at Thalia Reef, and the waves were really good, but I was there sitting with them, and my wife says to me, "Isn't this great?" And I thought to myself, not really, because I kind of would rather be out there. And I really genuinely felt I'd rather be surfing than sitting here. And I remember going home thinking, oh, I'm such a piece of crap. That is such a horrible thought. Praise God, now, all I want to be is with my family. I don't need to run. I don't need to do anything. Friday nights at my house, sitting on the couch, watching a movie, or going to dinner, or doing whatever we do together, whatever we're doing together, that's all I want to do.
Hallelujah.
We booked our vacation this summer,
Yeah.
and we always go to Bass Lake, and there's this place called Angel Falls, which is this natural waterfall, and before we go up there, we hike up there, and it's always just the 4 of us. That is where I want to be, in just a beautiful example of creation with my family, having a great time playing. That's the best.
Awesome.
Just the best.
The next 10 years, 20 years, what do you want to be able to look back and go, yeah, we did it right. I did it right. This is the...
Well, part and parcel of what I'm just saying, I want my daughters to have made great choices and to land really well. That's all I care about. Second, I want Annie and I to land really well, so that we can be in a place where we can be good grandparents and good parents, even to our kids then. So yeah, first, my kids land well. Second, that we land well. And third, that I'm still working. I hope I'm still working and helping people, and my wife's still doing the same. That'd be good. 10 years is going to be here tomorrow.
I know, it goes
So
fast,
it's
huh?
not that fast. 20 years, I wouldn't mind being in heaven, but we'll see.
You'll still be here running and leading people.
Yeah,
Don't you
yeah,
worry.
okay, so
don't age
if I'm
yourself
being
too
honest,
much.
in 20 years, I hope I'm winning my age bracket in
Yes.
the Western States
Yes.
100 miler.
Is that an
that's what I
aspiration
want.
for you?
Yes.
Western States?
I want to win my age bracket when I'm in my 70s.
When's the first time you're going to do Western States? That's a biggie.
Who knows? The lottery's insane. It's really hard to get to, but I'm training for it for 5 years from now.
Western States, 100-mile, one of the toughest ones. Is that out of...
It's in Auburn, which is kind of north of Sacramento, into Tahoe.
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah, there's actually a 5-year training plan for Western States. Isn't that funny?
right?
Yeah. So
Well, I look forward to seeing you at the top
Break
of
the tape.
Yep, break the tape.
Yeah.
Listen, any last words? Is there a single message as a pastor or as a human or as an athlete that you'd like to share? I think you're probably full of...
Yeah, the easiest one is a great acronym, JOY, J-O-Y, and it orders my priorities for me. And so J for me is Jesus, O is for others, Y is yourself. It's easy. It's an easy thing to remember. And I think that that's a great formula for really good living. If I'm putting Jesus first, I'm spending time with him, and he's inspiring me to be who he wants me to be. And then I'm putting others before myself. Others meaning my family and the people I work for and work with, people I come in contact with, whether it's a homeless person or a really successful person, whoever it is, putting them before me. And then if I have an hour to get out on trail, great.
Or two.
Or 2. Or Saturday mornings, 4.
Yes, tomorrow. I'll be paddling while you're running along tomorrow.
I'll think about you.
Right on. Clarke, if somebody wants to find more about your story or find more about you in the church or whatever, where can people find out more about you?
I work at the Crossing Church in Costa Mesa. Anyone's welcome at any time. Would love to have you on a Sunday morning. I'm on Instagram under Clarke Brogger, Facebook Clarke Brogger. Don't do Twitter. Don't do LinkedIn. So I think Instagram's the best place to find me. But I'd rather you come and meet me at the Crossing.
Rad.
Yeah.
Awesome. Clarke, dude, rad to tell the story. Really, really cool. There's a lot in there I didn't know.
Super fun.
I love the energy. I love the passion. I love the good things you're doing for the world and for yourself and your family. And just
You too, Mark.
Keep rocking. Thank you, buddy.
I'll say this. Mark Schuler, I've known forever. He's a really incredible guy. And he chooses to use resources that he has to help people. That's what you take to the bank.
That's why
Use
we're
the
here.
resources you've been given to help other people. Mark does it. I try and do it. You can do it too.
Dude, you're the man. Thank you, Rick. See you later.